Okay, hopefully everything's working, and if there's anybody out there, it would be lovely if you could put something in the chat just so that I know that you can hear me and that you can see me. So I know there's one person other than myself watching. So yeah, if you could put something in the chat, if you can actually hear me, that would be amazing. Yay, good morning, Rita Maria. I think it was you who posted something on Instagram when I did the hexagon spinning puzzle cards. I think that's you, isn't it? So thank you so much for doing that. Good morning from Guatemala indeed. It's 2:30 in the afternoon in England, a little bit after. So Friday afternoon, I thought some people, might be out there. Hopefully you can all hear me. And I thought I would, on my first day back after my holidays, so I've not done any crafting since I got back, and I got back on Sunday. So I've been busy getting my kids ready to go back to school and all that sort of thing. So they don't go back till Tuesday, but I thought I had to spend a little bit of time with them, getting them ready to go back. Now, I thought, oh, is it still working? No, buffering again. Well, I'm going to assume that it is going to start working again, because it keeps coming in and out for me, and if I sit still I can't tell if it's going or not. So I'm going to use this stamp set, and I've already stamped and coloured it, and I've got a confession to make. I stamped and coloured this image, it must be 4 or 5 years ago. I think I did it when Kathy Rakusen was doing one of her colouring challenges. So this image has been sitting in my bits box for years. So I went through my bits box and pulled out some things, and I thought I'd do a bigger card today. So as you can see, this stamp it's as big as my hand. I don't have the biggest hands, so because it's a big stamp, I thought, well, let's do a big card. And the sliding puzzle cards that I made before I went off on my holidays a fortnight ago, it's 2 weeks ago today, were all 4 by 4 inches or 10 centimetre squares. So this stamp is about 6 inches tall. It's not that wide, it's only about 2.5 inches wide, something like that. But I thought I'd put it on a 5 by 7 card. So this is one of the Santoro Gorjuss Girls. I think she's called Piracy. And I don't think this stamp is available anymore, sort of direct from Do Crafts, who used to have the license for Santoro. I think Craftelia in Europe still have it, and I've seen them on eBay and things. But there are other Gorjuss Girl stamps, and I've got loads of them because my daughter loved them. But she's the Gorjuss Girl. She's Piracy, if anyone's looking for her. But there's loads of them on eBay and things. I've seen them. So that's the stamp set. And she's already coloured in, and she was stamped and coloured with, I think I'd coloured it with Pro markers and maybe first edition, which is the Dovecraft markers as well. So I thought I would go from scratch onto a 5 by 7 card, and I thought I'd put her on craft because her hair's brown. It just looks sort of nice. Oh, thank you. Yeah, nice colouring. Like I say, I did this some time ago, and it is probably only 2 pen blends. Nothing really fancy on there. So yeah, so I'm going to cut her out, and I thought I'd put her on 5 by 7. And I thought, so this was the one that I did in my first video on sliding puzzle cards that didn't have a frame, and I thought I'd do the full 5 by 7 and not have a frame on her. So I'm just going to go with my method for making inch square pieces, and hope I can remember how I did it 2 weeks ago. And I just went through my scraps, pulled out, so this is a 5x7 card that that I cut something out of, but it didn't cut out properly, so it ended up in my scraps. So I'm just going to use the back of the 5x7 card as a base to stick everything to. So let me grab my trimmer. And you might have to sit and watch me fussy cut her out in a minute, which isn't going to be the most exciting thing, I'm sorry. I did think about cutting her out in advance. So let's just make this 5x7. So I'm going to need lots of strips that are 5 inches wide this time. And I thought, rather than doing them out of white, I've got all my scraps that are craft. And if you've ever used craft cards, you know that they're never all quite the same colour from different brands. So this is everything that's ended up in my craft scraps over the years, all different shapes and sizes. So if my puzzle is being portrait this way, I need lots of 5-inch wide strips. And of course I've got plenty of those. So I'm just going to use some of these scraps and cut enough pieces. So my measurements for when I was doing inches, I've got my piece of paper to remind me, where I need the pieces going this way to put the pieces on need to be 1/2 inch wide, and on the bases I need them 3/4 of an inch wide. So I need lots of 1/2 inch by 5 inch and lots of 3/4 inch by 5 inch strips. So I'm going to sit and cut those, and I thought I'd do that while, if there is anybody else going to join, if I've just done some of the basic cutting, nobody will have missed too much. So let me find some scraps. And let's so anything that's big enough for a 3/4 of an inch, and on this trimmer the 3/4 of an inch is 3 bolts. I can cut the narrower ones in a minute. I've just realised I've done my first ones too big, and I've made them 1 inch instead of 3/4 of an inch. See, that's what having a week off crafting does. You forgot measurements. Are those scraps 2mm thick? No, these are just the pieces. These are not what I'm going to use to build up the little T-shapes. These are what I'm going to stick it to. And I'm going to use some foam and make my own in a minute. So they're not 2mm thick. These are just, they're probably about 300 GSM. So they're heavy, they're a fairly heavyweight card, but they're not 2mm thick. This way first. So I'm making these 3/4 of an inch. By 5 inches at the moment, and I'll show you what. And these are the ones that are going to end up stuck to my card, and because I'm doing 7 inches, I need quite a lot of these. So I'll need 8, I think, if my brain's working correctly, because we need 1 for the top and 1 for the bottom, and these are going to end up with the foam tape underneath them to make the channels. So I think I need 8, because you need the number of pieces plus 1, because you've got an extra 1 for the edge. So I'm going to do 8. So I've got 4 so far, 4 more to go. And like I said, these are brilliant ways to use up all these scraps that I've got lurking in my scraps, because I'm terrible at actually throwing things away. And once it gets below a certain point, I can manage to do it, but I can't throw it away until it's small enough for my brain to say, yeah, that's scrap now. And I'm sure lots of crafters are the same. So, and a lot of these, I think I've said it before, a lot of these things are leftovers. I've done quite a lot of digital crafting, like making 3D things with digital die cutting machines, so you end up with some quite odd scraps because it always cuts out of the middle if you've got a digital cutting machine. So I haven't got a Cricut. I've got a Brother Scan and Cut and the old Sizzix Eclipse. So yeah, I end up with odd scraps from having cut all sorts of things over the years. So how many have I got? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 2 more. And then we need 7 of them that are 1/2 inch wide to go on the back of the puzzle pieces. And these are all being 5 inches wide because that puzzle's going to be 5 inches wide because it's going to be on a 5x7 card. Now this would obviously be quicker if you weren't using up scraps, because you could just sit and cut them to 5 inches and then cut them all to 3/4 of an inch. Okay, so now I can do, I've got any really narrow strips. Some narrow ones. So these ones are all going to be 1/2 inch, and these are the ones that are going to end up on the back of our puzzle pieces. So they need to be 1/2 inch wide, which on this Tim Holtz trimmer is the line where the blade hits, the blade ends and the measurements start. And they don't need to be really, really accurate. They just need to be more or less 1/2 inch. So I need 7 of these. I don't know if I even counted out 7 pieces of paper, or 7 pieces of card. So far, all I've done is pulled something that I already had coloured out of my bits box and scraps from my, in this case, I had tons of strips in my craft card stash. So hello Celine, you've not missed a lot. All I'm doing, oh, that one's not long enough. All I'm doing at the moment is using my cutter to make all the strips that are going to go behind on this sliding puzzle card. So I'm making a 5x7 card, so everything's going to be 5 inches wide, and these ones that I'm doing at the moment are going to get stuck on the back of my puzzle pieces, so they all need to be 1/2 inch wide. And the ones that I've already done, they're going to get stuck down to the card, and they're being 3/4 of an inch wide. So I've got 8 of them that are 3/4 of an inch by 5 inch, and I'm going to have 7 of them because it's going to be a 5 by 7 inch puzzle. So I need 7 of them that are 5 inches by ½ an inch. So that's 4. And like I say, I am really just using up the scraps that I had in craft card. And this one's wide enough that I've got 2 out of it. So yeah, just cutting strips. Not the most riveting thing to watch, sorry. How many have we got? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, one more, and we'll be done with just cutting up the strips. That's not square. I've managed to cut the not square piece. Let's do another one. It's just scraps. Either that or I didn't hold it down properly and it shifted. It could be. Okay. Hopefully I've got enough now. Right. Let's put that out of the way. Stick all these little pieces in a box. Hopefully they'll all go in the rubbish and my brain won't tell me to put them back in here. Right, just get rid of all my scraps again. So we've got 8 pieces that will get stuck down on here, and we've got 7 pieces that will go on the back of our puzzle pieces. Okay, so if you watched my original sliding puzzle card, you'll know where I'm heading, and if you haven't, hopefully as I go along it will all become clear. So if you've not watched it, we're making a card like this but somewhat bigger, and this works. So our little puzzle pieces, hopefully you can see, I've got a little T-shape on the back. So these pieces are this T-shape piece that's the back of the T-shape, and then these pieces are the ones that you can see here on the card. So the top and the bottom one will actually end up narrower, but I found it was easier just to make them all the same size and trim them later. And on these ones I used foam tape to make the little T pieces, to make the bits behind and give us the dimension. So what I thought we'd do today was to make a background. So this is who we're using, this is what's going on. Just reading comments. Got a scan and cut, but only usually, yeah, I must admit I only really use my scan and cut to cut out coloured images, and that's what I bought it for, because I already had my Sizzix Eclipse when I bought it. So I must admit I don't use my scan and cut for much else. I use my Eclipse, which they don't make anymore, if I'm doing any other like 3D digital projects. So right, so we do need to make our foam tape, and I thought, well, I talked in my original video about using funky foam or craft foam. This is just the stuff that they sell for kids to cut out. It's really easy to cut, and I said one way to do it was to make your own sticky foam tape, and I thought, well, we're using craft card, I'm going to pull out some of my brown and make my own. So this is just the craft foam that they sell for kids, and all, oh no, I think it's buffering. Well, my video feed has gone, so I don't know if you're still there or not. Let me check. Is there anything I can do? Nope. That still says it's working. Let me really reload my own YouTube page and see if it comes back. Ah, I'm back. Right. So I don't know if you could still see and hear me doing anything or not, but all I've got here is the brown craft foam, and all I've done is, this is double-sided sticky tape. This happens to be the stuff that in the UK came from a pound shop, and I think there was about 5 rolls for £1. So this is cheap and cheerful, nothing special, double-sided tape. So I'm just sticking it on both sides and just going to cut my own strips from this. So if I did disappear, that's all I'm doing, putting my double-sided sticky on both sides. Craft a bit better. So let's see how many of these we can get. So again, these are going to need to be 5 inches, but I'm just going to leave them the full width of the that I've got here, because I checked it's more than 5 inches. It's about 5 3/4 inches. It's just a off cut, and I'm going to need 8 plus 7, so I'm going to need 15. And the ones that I used, have to find my sheet, I'll show you. The ones that I used were this thickness on my original samples, which it's 5 millimeter wide, which is what, it's about 3/16 of an inch. So I'm gonna probably, just for ease, make these 1/4 of an inch wide, because then I can just slide it on my trimmer. So I'm just going to go and start there and make it probably just a smidge under 1/4 of an inch. And you'll see, even with the sticky tape on both sides, if I made that a bit wide, maybe I can go a bit narrower. Even with the sticky tape on both sides, it still cut through that without any issues. So it's a way, if you don't have your own foam tape, just to make your own. And I'm going to make them a little bit narrower than that first one. The other way, if you've got a trimmer that doesn't have the measurements, is get something the width you want. And let me show you, if I slide my trimmer up on screen, hopefully I'm on screen at that. So if I hold the foam tape that I want the width of at the bottom, because the measurements obviously on a guillotine don't go far enough for me, I'm holding my foam tape at the bottom, hopefully you can just see that, and holding it to the right width. so that way I can get them to the width I want. There's other tricks to doing it, so getting things the width you want on the guillotines that don't have the measurements all the way. I think this is probably the quickest, yeah. 1/4 inch is probably a little bit too wide, so 3/16 is probably about right. And I need about 15 of these, so I will need to do some more. So it's not the most exciting process watching me cut in, but I thought it's sometimes good to see everything from start to finish, so you can see exactly how it works. I'm trying to protect my nails because my younger daughter, who's 15, gave me a lovely gel manicure 2 nights ago, and I'm hoping that it will last while I'm crafting. I don't know if it will or not when I'm touching things like the guillotine blade, and so fingers crossed it will last a week or so. And I'll get one more out of this piece with the tape on, I think. And just take that out. So how many have I got? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. Who knew? I got exactly the right number. So that was 3 strips of my, I think this is, what, that's, it's not quite 1 inch wide. It's probably 3 centimetres, something like that, wide, something like. So there you go, that's a way, if you've not got nice foam tape on a roll, you can, if you've got any sort of double-sided tape, funky foam, you can make your own strips. So that's all we've done. So I'm going to use this as my base piece to stick everything to, and all I'm going to do is find my pencil and mark at every inch. So this is 7 inches, so I'm obviously going to mark at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 inches. Just let me think about this, if I've done it right. Yeah, I've done it right. So I'm just going to draw a line across. So this is my guide for where to put my bottom pieces. And I'm going to get this done and then do the pretty decorative bit on the top. in a minute. If you're using a tea room home, make sure you've got it straight to the side. Which I don't know that I have that straight flat on the side there. No, I didn't. These are only a guideline, so if they're not perfectly square, that bottom will look miles out. It was. So what's going to happen is these ones are going to get stuck here. So we need to put, and any of these, I'm going to pick the most even ones because I've got this fat one and I know there's a skinny one somewhere. So I'm going to pick the most even ones to use for my puzzle pieces. So I need 7 that look about the same width because my cutting wasn't perfect, and it's more important for the spacing of the ones on your top layer that they all look about the same width. They don't need to be dead on, but it's more important for those than it is for the ones that we're going to stick down here. So I'm just going to pull the backing off one side of these, and I need one at the bottom, straight across the bottom. And don't worry that it's hanging off the edge, we'll just come back and cut those all off. And because I want this to go right to the edges, I am going to try and make sure that it's square on the edge. So I'm just using the lines on my board a bit as well, just to make sure it goes straight across. So I'm just sticking it so that it lands in the middle of that line that we made. And this is all going to be the base of our puzzle. So I'm just getting everything as straight as I can. I could have made this directly onto my card, but I decided against that because if anything goes desperately wrong, at least I've not wasted another card base. So I'm just going to flip it over and trim off all these extra little pieces. So once you've made your little foam tape strips, it's really quick to pop those on there. Right, so we're starting to get somewhere. So then these pieces then get stuck on here. Okay, but we don't want to do that yet. We've got all that ready. What we now want to do is make our, what I'm going to call my back of my tea pieces. So these are the ones that are going to end up with our puzzle pieces stuck on the top of them. Okay, so I'm just eyeballing it. I'm just sticking my foam tape down the centre. I'm just trying to get it as straight as possible down the centre of my piece, and then I'll come back and cut them all off. But we're going to stick that, they're going to end up sat in here, so this is what our pieces will slide in and out on. And you've got plenty wiggle room. So again, just the same thing, just keep sticking them in the middle of our T-pieces. I'm just reading your comments while I'm sticking. So, about the different sorts of learners, and yeah, you're right, if you're a visual learner, the best way is literally to watch, isn't it, and see it repeated. Which is one of the reasons that with the spinning puzzle cards, I repeated the process, but trying to give lots, for those people who'd got the idea, also tried to give lots and lots of different ideas of different things you could do. So I think I'll probably do the same with these and try and come up with loads of different ideas of what you can put on the top of these and different ways you can use them. But yeah, the actual making of it is, you know, really similar. But yeah, it does help definitely for if you're if you're a visual learner, to see it all start to finish. You have to put up with me chatting whilst we do it. So all I'm doing is cutting the excess off these. And all my sticky bits. Right. So we've got the majority of our mechanism now. And let's slide those all in. You want to start in the middle. So we've got 1, 2, 3. So this is our middle one. Okay. So the first one, we're not peeling the backing off the slidey pieces. These are going to be used as our spacers. So what we want to do is stick our first in the middle of this piece of foam tape. And don't worry about anything else for a minute. So the one that stuck, so this is our slidey one. This is our one of the ones around our centerpiece. We're going to pull the backing off that one. Okay. And all I'm doing is having a look from the side and getting that. I'm just eyeballing it. Getting it as close to the centre as possible. And if there's a little bit of overhang anywhere, I've not stuck that straight at all. I'm going to pull that back off carefully. And right, the only reason I'm pulling out a different board to put this on is my glass mat's in centimetres. And of course this is all in inches. So all the lines end up, it throws my eye. So I've got a cutting mat that's got inches. Oh, it happens to be Gorjuss Girls, which is what we're using today. So all I'm doing now is the one that I'm using, I'm just making sure it's lined up with a line. And then I can make sure that before I push it down, yeah, I've got it straight. So yeah, the centimetre lines just throw my eye out because they don't actually line up. Whereas if you're working in inches, it's useful to use an inches board. So now we've got our slidey piece, and I'm using that as a spacer. So I've started in the middle, and then I can work either upwards or downwards. What you want to do is sandwich your piece so that it still wiggles, but you can still slide it in and out. Okay. And I'm hoping I've done this right and I've not done it the wrong way round. No, I've done it right. Hope I've got my measurements right. So work your way up, get your slidey piece, hold it in, and if you drop it on, it should still slide in and out. Okay, that one's probably a little bit tight, but I don't know if I can get it off again. Yeah, this is forgiving enough foam tape that I can get it back off again. I just made that a bit too tight then. So enough that you can slide them in and out, but there's not so much wiggle that it's going to go flying. You want to wait a minute. Same again. Not doing very well lining up today. So when we get to the bottom, our piece will actually probably be about right. It will have a bit of overhang, but this is where I said it's far easier just to trim off the overhang. So there we go. So we've now got our bits that will slide in and out. Okay, and I'm just going to turn it over and repeat going the other way. So the backing off, hold our piece there, make sure we've got it so it can slide in and out before we push everything down. And I think I've bananaed some of these, they're not quite straight, but it'll still work fine. Even though we're working with straight lines, you end up with enough wiggle. And this is why I picked this method. I tried 2 or 3 different methods on how to get the pieces accurate. And because we're working in straight lines, this seemed to be the way that worked the best. So that you get a really neat top, and the mechanism underneath doesn't need to be so perfect and neat. But if you get the top perfect and neat, no one will ever know what's going on underneath. Okay, so there we go. So we've got all of our bits now. Everything's sliding in and out, no problems. And so now what I would do is slide these out all out, probably just for a minute, flip it over, and then just trim off anything that's hanging over. So I made sure that the piece I'm using as a back panel is 5x7, the same as my card blank. And I could have done the same with these. If I hadn't cut these to 5 inches, I could have had them overhanging by a lot and just done this at the end, because you won't see. So if you're ever trimming from behind, make sure it's stuck to my scissors, and just use long scissors. I'm rubbish at cutting straight lines, but I can manage this because I'm just using my top panel as a guide. So now it's nice and neat from the back, and this is just going to get stuck. So this could even have been scrap that had stuff stamped on it, because this is going to get stuck onto our card base. Oh, that one didn't slide out. I've got that one a little bit tight, but it'll still work. So these will now all slide back in where they came out of. Okay, so that's the basis for our sliding puzzle card. And I know that took me what feels like an age. I pulled out my stash this stencil, which is I think I've got stick and spray on the back of this, which is why it's sticking to its backing sheet. So this is one from Craft Sensations, which in the UK you can get in the range, and it's just a cloud stencil. And what I realise I've not managed to get is a piece of card to stick everything to, so bear with. I'm having to walk across my craft room, reach over all the junk on my floor, right, so I've just got a fresh piece of craft card because I'm sticking with the craft card and I'm going to stick it to craft cards. So I need, is this 7 inches? I need what, 5 by 7, yeah. So let's cut a 5-inch. So this is what we're making our puzzle pieces out of. And I'm going to have to mark this because my cutter doesn't go up to 7 inches. The only problem with this trimmer, it only goes to 6 inches, and I have got a bigger one, you know, just this one's the quickest one to bring on camera, so that should be 5 by 7. Let's double check that's actually going to fit on my panel. Yeah, there we go. So this is going to end up on the top of here. Okay, so we need to decorate this however we're doing it, and as I was saying, I'm just going to do some inking and get some clouds on here. So this is a repeating stencil, so if I stick it right to the very bottom and the very edge, I can repeat it at the top as well, something like that. And yeah, this has already got I think it's the Crafter's Companion stick and spray that it's got on the back of it, and I'm just using a white pigment ink, and I have a brush that's, so yeah, I'm just gonna get some clouds behind. I thought about doing red and blue stripes behind her. They could have done anything, and I've actually got a second one of these that I coloured at the same time, so I could recreate this with a different background. And put some underneath just so I don't get it all over my glass mat and then end up covering myself in white ink. I have to keep going out. Celine said I have to keep going out. Is trying to reset the Fire Stick. Oh no. And then forgetting passwords, brain fog. Yeah, I'm at the age where brain fog is hitting me as well. My teenage daughters and husband think it's highly amusing. It's really not funny, is it, ladies? How did I come up with this puzzle? Well, I came up with this puzzle because I was thinking about, you know, those little sliding puzzles that you get as a kid. They're usually about 3 by 3. The little ones that always square, and you can slide the pieces in and out, and I couldn't work out a way, at least not simply, to do it on a card. So after I'd done the spinning puzzles, I was basically trying to think of another way you could do different type of puzzles. And I know there's jigsaw puzzle dies out there, but they're quite expensive, so I was trying to come up with something in the same way that the spinning puzzles, you can do those with any sort of concentric nested shapes. You can do it with, I know circles is the obvious one, but lots of people have got circle dies. So my theory was, well, what could we do without dies, without, you know, or at least something that lots of people would have. There we go. And then I'm just going to repeat this at the top while I'm talking to you. So yeah, I was just trying to think of a way to do it, a way to make a puzzle. And yeah, the inspiration was those sliding puzzle from when you were a kid. Sometimes they had numbers on, sometimes it was pictures. And yeah, this was what I came up with. And I do like a bit of paper engineering. So I must admit, I'm a fan of a bit of paper engineering. So that was the idea. And that was how I came up with it, the little T-shapes behind. My background is in science. Many, many years ago, my degree is in physics. So my brain's a bit more mathematical than arty. And don't get me wrong, I love my card making, but I do actually always enjoy a bit of paper engineering. So I love like the Lawn Fawn and all their interactive dies. I've got a few of those, but again, they're really expensive. So it's been nice coming up with a way to use things and to do a puzzle that didn't need all these fancy, expensive interactive dies. So there we go, we've got white pigment ink on there. And I think I'm just going to have a quick heat set of that, or else I'm going to end up with ink everywhere. So I'm going to drink my coffee, my coffee cup, whilst I'm heat setting. I'm just going to give my desk a quick wipe. Because it'd be just my luck that I get it all over something that I shouldn't if I don't. So. Okay. So I'm going to leave that to carry on drying on its own while I fussy cut this one out. And I'm sorry, Santoro, I am cutting the name off the bottom because I don't think it'll fit how I want it otherwise. And I'm not actually going to leave a white border. I'm going to go right up to the line. I might regret that when I come up to her hair in a minute, but you know. She's not too complicated. I say that as I get to the frill on the bottom of her dress, which is white, so I'm not going to worry too much about that. But So yeah, if you missed at the beginning, this is the Santoro Gorjuss Girl, and she's called Piracy, and I don't think she's being made anymore, but I know if you're in Europe, Craftelier, the Spanish company, I think, Craftelier originally, but they ship all over Europe. They've got some in stock still of her, and they're definitely showing up on eBay, because the stamps from about 4 or 5 years ago, and I know it was Do Crafts in the UK that used to have the license for Santoro for the Gorjuss Girls, and I think that the license has been transferred over to, I think it might be Studio Light NL, which NL's Studio Light's a Dutch company, I think, which is where the NL's from, Netherlands. So if you like the Gorjuss Girl stamps, they're still being made, they're just not being made in this design anymore, and it's a different company that holds the license. So Santoro London is a British company, and I don't know about everywhere else in the world, but you can get Gorjuss Girls on, you know, makeup bags and key rings and all sorts of things. The artwork's licensed onto, and obviously for the craft world, it's been licensed, used to be licensed by Do Crafts, but somebody else has obviously, their license has obviously expired, and it's gone to a Dutch company now. So Studio Light definitely do Gorjuss Girls now, and I think in the UK, I think I've seen them. I don't know if they're on Create and Craft TV or if they're on Hobby Maker, but I've seen them on what my children fondly call the Selly Telly. They've definitely been on somewhere. They've definitely been somewhere on TV with the new range. I haven't got any from the new range yet. I've got lots and lots of them from the old Do Craft range. So I have got a box full of Gorjuss Girl stamps, because my youngest daughter always loved them, and they were a really good go-to stamp for all of their friends when my girls were growing up and they were making cards for their friends' birthdays. So there was lovely images like these, that the pirate one, if one of the friends was a bit of a tomboy, and then there was more girly ones, but they were always a good go-to. I'm going to regret not leaving a border now, aren't I? Going around her hair. And fussy cutting, like they always say, move your scissors, not... Don't you move... Sorry, the opposite of what I'm trying to say. Don't move your scissors, move your paper, your card. I'm not amazing at fussy cutting, but I just get on with it and do it. It's only a piece of paper. And I prefer this type of scissors that are the reverse ones. These are tonic ones, but I know We Are Memory Keepers make them as well, because I have a pair from them as well. So but yeah, these are just the ones that I prefer when I'm fussy cutting. So far, I've got scrap from my scraps pile to make all of the back piece. I've got something out of my bits box that I stamped and coloured in years ago. And the only thing that I've got a fresh full piece of card for is the piece that I've stenciled the clouds onto. So I think in terms of using up stuff, I'm doing quite well today. I am just going to cut out this landlock piece. So this isn't a landlock piece, that's her arm. It is coloured. Don't know if that shows up well on camera, but I'm just going to quickly get this white piece out of here, because it will look odd if I don't, I think. And I don't think I can cut with a knife and talk. Sorry. So go through. So there we go. That only took a sec. There we go. Right, so she's going to get stuck down flat on there. Let's get rid of some of my mess out of the way. I'm sure everybody's... I need a couple of days before I went. I was editing the video that I posted before I went, but I wasn't actually crafting, so... Well, there you go. Lucky my glue wasn't blocked. So yeah, because we're going to cut her out, you do need to make sure, because she's going to get all chopped up, make sure you've got glue right to the edges and a good thin layer all over her. So if any bits do come off when you chop her up, you can stick her back down, obviously. It's just easier if they don't come off in the first place. And the same rules really apply to these as all my spinning puzzle cards. You can put anything you want on top of your puzzle. So whatever crafting you enjoy, you can put it on top, as long as you can still cut it up at the end. So I'm going to pop her in the middle. I'm just debating whether to put any greeting on here or not. Get rid of the glue off my mat. And make sure she's, like I say, really stuck down well. So we've got her nicely stuck down. I am going to give her a minute to dry because things always go through better cutting when you wait for your glue to dry. Have another sip of coffee, bear with. Right, sorry, finished my coffee now. Right, so while she's drying, I'm actually just going to put something heavy on her to dry. So, oh, a comment just came up. Okay, yeah, so Can this puzzle be made so that the pieces navigate vertically and horizontally at the same time? Well, that was the inspiration for these, and I've not worked out a simple way to do it. There is a way to do it, and there are videos on YouTube of people recreating those sliding puzzle cards that, yeah, they go this way and this way, like those little plastic things that I used to get when I was a kid. Now, there is a way to do it, and there's videos out there, but all of the ones that I've seen, they're making them out of like cardboard boxes, so big thick cardboard, and they're like this. They're at probably 8 or 12 inches square, so they're a lot bigger even than this, which is quite a big card. So there are some out there, and what you have to do, there's a cheats way to do it. There's a way to do it that they literally just make squares and make them slide about, and they don't actually have it so that the pieces, you know, so if you flipped it upside down, they just fall out because they're just squares put in there. So there is a way to do it where you end up with a notch on 2 sides, and I have seen a video for that, but I think for a card that you're going to see a little bit too complex. So yes, there's a way to do it. No, I'm not going to do it is the answer to that question, I think. So I'm just marking these all at 1 inch because I'm going to cut them up in a sec with my scissors. So all I'm doing is marking these at 1 inch. Yeah, maybe with the frame that holds everything together, yeah, that's exactly the style of puzzle. Yeah, with a frame around it, and like I said, there is a way, and I have seen somebody do them, like I say, out of cardboard boxes and things, intending it to be for children to use, you know, for creating your favourite character on it. I think I've seen them with like Pokemon characters. But no, I don't think I'm going to do it. I think I'm going to stick with the horizontal, and I'm only going in and out in one direction. So this one's not having a frame, but the ones that I created in my first video, this was the only one I did that didn't have a frame. The other ones I made did have frames on them. So if I can grab them. I haven't got one of the ones that I made in my first video for these because I've already sent it to my brother. It was my brother's birthday on Sunday, so the other one that had happy birthday on it with the frame around it has already been sent to somebody, so I haven't got it anymore to show you. So yeah, these ones with the frames on were what I made 2 weeks ago, a bit more. So yeah, these ones had a frame, so they only slide in and out from this side. And I get the idea that you're saying if you put a frame around, could you have them slide in both ways? And I think there would be a way, something like this method, where you had like a grid work behind, but I think it might just get a bit too complicated. So if you think about it with the one we've got here, you'd have to have slots going this way as well as that way, and I think it just might get a bit too complicated. So yeah, so you can make these with a frame so that they only slide in and out from one side, which is what these ones were, or the one we're doing today isn't going to have a frame, so it's going to be like this one. Oh, you made one. I made it. So Rita Maria's, I made one for my father with your spinning puzzle design, and he plays it often. He's 83. That's lovely. Yeah, I think these are really good for adults, kids. So my father-in-law, he'll be 79 in December. He doesn't like it when I say that he's 80 next year. So my father-in-law, he loves jigsaw puzzles. So I think he'll be getting one of these for his birthday in December. So all I'm doing is cutting these up and sliding them back in. So these are all just getting cut to 1 inch wide. And they don't need to be dead accurate because we probably will end up trimming them when we put our top piece on in a minute. So yeah, even though we're working with lots of straight lines, if it's not perfect, so can you see this one's not as, it's narrow at this end, don't know why, it's how it turned out. It just means those puzzle pieces will slide in and out more easily. And if there is anybody joining late on, I will do a cut down version of this as well, so that the bit that's actually just card making, probably speed it up, and you can see what it being made start to finish, but a little bit faster. Either that or cut some bits out, because it's not that interesting watching me cut strips and things. But I'm impressed with myself that I've remembered how to do this after 2 weeks. My own design. But I'm doing it a different size, so. But the measurements are pretty easy. If you stick to everything in inches, or if you're a metric person, everything in 2.5 centimetres. So 2.5 centimetres, 1 centimetre. So if you make your puzzle pieces 2.5 centimetres squared, your piece that you stick on your back is 1 centimetre wide, and the piece that you stick down make it 2 centimetres wide. It seems to work fine with those dimensions, and then 0.5 millimetre wide tape or foam strips, whatever you're using. And I have made, you can make it these pieces by building up card, but it's a lot harder to cut through. So if you've got loads and loads of, if you've got like one of these, a strip jar with loads and loads of really thin pieces in, if you cut them all to 0.5 centimetre wide, or 3/16 of an inch, whichever you want to do, if you cut them all to the same width and stack them, and then glue them together and stack them up to about 2 millimetres deep, which is roughly what the foam tape is, then you can do it that way. It's the only bit that's hard is this. Once you've got loads and loads stacked together, this piece is a lot harder to cut them. So I have done it and I have tried it, and it does work. It's just hard to cut them once they're all stacked together. Right, so we've got all of those pieces in there. And I did debate whether to put a greeting on this, and I thought, I'm not gonna, I'm just gonna leave her as she is. And I could always add, you know, a little greeting. You know, if it sits within a 1 inch square, I could even do it once it's completed, or cut it afterwards. So all now we need to do is cut this into 1 inch squares. And I think we're going to go this way first. So let's make sure we've got that as accurate as we possibly can. And I'm going to keep line them back up. No, I'm back. I'm just going to do a check for any little bits that haven't got enough glue right to the edges just before I cut it up in the other direction and start losing these pieces. So yeah, anything that looks like it could get lost when we cut it in the other direction. I think that was the only bit that's really obvious to start with. Right, so keeping everything lined up, I'm going to switch it round. And because this is a 7-inch square, and I know I want it to 6 inches, I'm going to get everything lined up and just get a bit of... This is just the piece that I chopped this out of. I'm just going to use it just to line everything up. So get everything lined up flat to that edge. So I'm just using another piece of card just to keep everything on that edge square. And then everything should stay lined up. And then I need to bring it back to my 6-inch mark. Let's try and keep my pieces in order. It will save me time. I'll check it before I stick them down, obviously. Two, three, 4, 5. I think they're in the right order this time. Hello from Sweden. Hello. I hope everyone can still see me. Mine buffers on and off. I don't know if it's my internet or YouTube. I hope everybody can still see me. And you might be able to hear my noisy dog having a bark at my door, but she's not allowed in my office because there's a load of mess on my floor at the moment. So she's not allowed in right now because she would steal things and start chewing them up. Just trying to keep the bits in the right order again. Yeah. So Sweden, I think you're an hour ahead of me. So, oh, that means it's 5 o'clock. So it's 5 o'clock on a Friday, which means you're allowed more than a cup of coffee if you're watching. So, I think it's YouTube having a little buffer moment. It says I've been on for too long, probably. So it's making me buffer. But we'll carry on. We're nearly finished. I know it doesn't look like it, but we are. We've got everything except the last bit. Oh, gone too far. Don't go too far. Come back. Like I say, the best way to keep everything lined up is to use another piece of card to keep all of these edges square to it. Oh, I'm hoping I think I'm going to be really careful and pull these two pieces out together and make sure I stick that back on right now before I lose it. So glue dry on that bit and then make sure this piece isn't going to come off as well. No, that bit's stuck. Right. Right. Now. And this is the reason that I picked a stencil to pop in the background behind her, because we're going to have, because I knew she was only going to fill the middle piece, I knew I'd have all, because you don't want to. That's not right way up, I don't think. Is it that way up? I'm not sure. So let's get her feet in, because we know they're. I'm not sure I've got this one the right way up now. Sorry if my head came on camera then. In fact, have I mixed these two up completely? Maybe I have. Does that look better? So this is exactly what I was saying, right? So I know that's that piece. Get this bottom corner as good as we can get it. So I'm picking the bottom corner. I've taken the tape just off my first and just keep going along, getting everything as tight and square. And it doesn't matter at this point if your puzzle pieces are slightly overlapping. We're going to come back and trim them all, because for some reason this always happens. Even though I've trimmed them and everything's an inch square, I always seem to end up with a bit sticking out by the time I get to the end of my row. And I don't know why that is. There's no logical reason why that would be, but it's what happens. So, and it's happened every time I've made them. Give everything a haircut at the end. Buffer in again. I'm sorry, I don't think it's me, I think it's YouTube. Unless my children are watching much on TV or films. So we're just going along with each piece, and it just tends to, because you can't get the dimension in your trimmer, you tend to end up with it not being very square. So although my trimmer will go through the foam tape, once it's stuck on the back of a strip, things don't end up quite as square. So this, I have found, is the best way. So just keeping everything as neatly lined up as we can. And then of course, once you've got the first one from your row in, this fits quite quick. I'm just reading the comment from, I think it's Mikkel. Hopefully I'm saying your name right, Mikkel. Your dog gets tons of embossing powder and glitter in her fur. I've got 2 dogs, and my older dog, who's 8 years old, she's still completely nuts. So she's allowed in when there's things that are at nose level. And me and my younger daughter went and helped my father-in-law yesterday clearing some of my mother-in-law's craft things, because we lost my mother-in-law to cancer in April. So we were clearing things out, and between my younger daughter and myself, we're having most of it, because my younger daughter's getting really into sewing, and my mother-in-law did an awful lot of sewing. So she's having most of her sewing stuff, and she did a lot of, she did make cards. She didn't make very many cards, but she made cards and bookmarks and things as well. But she did a lot of journaling, so a lot of the papercraft things related to her journaling. I think I'll probably have some of those. So my craft room floor is at the moment absolutely covered. I think that we've got about 10 big reusable bags full of things that we cleared yesterday, which will eventually find homes. But we need a new bookcase in my daughter's bedroom so that she can put all the jars of buttons and threads and things. So we need a trip to IKEA so that my daughter can have. So craft room floor, so that it's not lying around in the house. So it's a bit of a mess in here. So the dogs aren't allowed on my pegboard, so I don't know what I need at the moment. I'm getting there. So this is a 5x7 card. This means there's 35 of these little squares, doesn't it? And then the only thing that'll be left to do is come back and give all these little pieces a little haircut. You can see it's all looking nice and flat. And then the last step would just be to stick it on the card blank. So I've been on this line stream for about an hour and a half now. I haven't been solidly crafting for that because I didn't start for a few minutes and drop things in my bin. I think because I'm not a very big creator, YouTube doesn't give me the bandwidth. I think on subscribers, they might be a bit nicer and they'll give me a bit more bandwidth maybe. And the last time I checked, I think I had 801 subscribers. Is 1,000 subscribers, which, oops, have I got that upside down? I've got that upside down. So yeah, the magic number is 1,000 subscribers, which I'm not there yet. So